Hi. So, today I'd like to talk about the Tao Te Ching. I'm probably going to mispronounce that quite a bit. I just really started looking into it, and I don't know, a lot of it seems to speak to me, at least philosophically, so I figured I would share some of what I have been looking at. So this book is the Tao Te Ching Illustrated, The Way to Goodness and Power by Lao Tzu. But it looks like it's published by Amber Books. And there's a translator credit to a James Trapp, and that's with two P's. Now, like I said, there's a few different pronunciations of how to say it. Some people say Tao Te Ching. I'm going to go with the alternative pronunciation, Tao Te Ching, or sometimes I'll just say Tao. Anyway, like I said, most of this I found very interesting, and so I'm going to take some time and I'm going to go over one of these chapters a day. Just as a foreword, I'm going to say, it says here, interpreting Tao Te Ching. There are many different ways of interpreting Tao Te Ching. In terms of language, all ancient classical Chinese is highly elliptical, and the Tao Te Ching exceptionally so. Spare even in its use of the marker particles that give a syntactical framework. There's a couple of $5 words there. In addition, there are frequent references to things that may have been common knowledge in the Warring States period, but whose precise meaning and symbolism are long lost. For the most part, these barriers are negotiable, but in crossing them, the translator and reader face the real challenge of interpretation. What is the underlying nature of the book? For some, it is a mythological and mystic work with roots deep in ancient tradition and representing the remains of an ancient cosmology. It is seen as the sacred text of the religious beliefs that came to be known as Taoism. For others, the religious aspect is entirely secondary, and it is taken as a work of metaphysical philosophy rooted more in practicality than mysticism. As of right now, I am leaning towards that structure, the more philosophical side and life lesson type themes. I tend to, at least from what I've heard so far, I tend to agree with a lot of the, as I said, philosophical and life lesson type perspectives. Although the mysticism elements are quite interesting as well, but less practically applicable to real life, in my opinion anyway. Finally, and this is the view taken for this translation, it can be seen as a work of socio-political philosophy, possibly written specifically as guidance for the ruler of a small to medium-sized state. The text contains specific instructions and admonitions to such a ruler, which are dictated by and dependent on the overarching mystic cosmology. In this translation, the deliberately opaque and unfathomably mysterious possibilities the text offers have, in general, given place to an attempt at clarity and consistency within the constraints of the text itself and its assumed purpose. At the same time, no translation of this work can allow itself to cast aside the essential lyricism and unfettered embracing of paradox of the original. The sole purpose here is to offer another avenue for readers to explore this extraordinary work for themselves. Now, we begin with Chapter 1, Mystery of the Tao. The Tao that we can comprehend is not the eternal and infinite Tao. The names that we give are not the eternal and infinite names. Void is how we name the origin of the cosmos. Amplitude is how we name the creation of the things that fill it. Thus it is in void that we can contemplate the scope of the Tao, and in amplitude its subtleties. These two have different names, but a common source, and both are mysteries. They are mystery upon mystery, gateways to the infinite mutability of the Tao. So, that was chapter 1. And I think we'll find that a lot of these chapters are quite short. A lot of them are just a single paragraph. Some of them are a bit longer, being maybe 2 paragraphs or a page. But a lot of them are quite short. And so, instead of just ending there, I would like to talk a little bit about my interpretation of these words here. So, it says, if we go back up to the top, the Tao that we can comprehend is not the eternal and infinite Tao. The names that we give are not the eternal and infinite names. So if I were to think about that briefly, it seems obvious to me that what is attempting to be conveyed is this nature of the unknowable. Something that is so far beyond the scope of your perception as a person that you can't really comprehend it. You can't really wrap your mind around it. But you give it a word, such as the Tao, to describe this indescribable thing so that you can talk about it with others. Void is how we name the origin of the cosmos. Amplitude is how we name the creation of the things that fill it. So, for me, I would say void is how we name the origin of the cosmos. It kind of sounds like a poetic way of saying that in the beginning there was nothingness. Amplitude is how we name the creation of the things that fill it. So, with some amplitude, that is to say, I'm not quite sure if the amplitude refers to time or if the amplitude refers to a kind of frequency, but things began to populate the nothingness. Thus it is in void that we can contemplate the scope of the Tao, and in amplitude its subtleties. So the full scope of the unknowable is in how vast it is. But in the little things, that's where we find our personal, subtle beliefs and our personal lives. In other words, we are a very small, possibly even infinitesimal subtlety among the void. We are a small detail in something beyond what we can understand. These two have different names but a common source, and both are mysteries. Essentially, there's no way for me to know for sure if my interpretation is correct, no matter how much I believe it to be true and live by it. It will always be a mystery. They are mystery upon mystery, gateways to the infinite mutability of the Tao. So there's always going to be something that sort of confuses you, for lack of a better word. There's never going to be something that, I mean, I suppose you can know your own personal truth, but there would be never something that you could claim as objectively true, since it's infinitely mutable. It changes all the time. And your personal truth, you can, I suppose, try to cling to that, but that doesn't mean that it responds to your attempts to cling to it. It changes, even if you don't, or if you choose not to. It is not truly comprehensible, even if you try to understand it. And so I'm going to end this video with just a quick reference to the image that I'm looking at here in the one of the illustrations. This is, again, apologies for mispronunciation, but this looks like the word baguya. The baguya are 8 trigrams used in Taoist cosmology to represent the fundamental principles of reality. The template for each has 8 areas arranged in an octagram shape. At the center are the characters for yin and yang. And to be honest with you, I have always had an appreciation for those who are really good at calligraphy. I've never really found it to be the most stirring or provocative type of art, but I do respect it for the amount of skill and the careful sort of handwork that is required. And so I acknowledge it for that, but I feel like I am, looking at this image, I feel like I am missing something, some kind of context for it to be truly moving to me. And maybe if I understood something else, some sort of supplementary material, that this would mean a lot more than just acknowledging the craftsmanship. Maybe I'm missing some sort of cultural connection. And so I can really only judge it on the technical skill, which is quite good. Anyway, that's all for today. I think I'll do another chapter at a later time. And I hope everybody watching is doing well.